on backwards. Welcome to the Lone Star State, where folks are strangely protective of their cannons and drink sweet tea while firing shotguns and listening to country music. They say everything is bigger in Texas, and I would have to agree. Once you meet the anthropomorphic beaver who reigns atop the 75,000 square foot gas station, I think you'll know what I mean. You would think passing the Convention of States resolution would be easy in a freedom-loving state like this, and you would be correct. And Texas very easily passed the Convention of States application, and they all lived happily ever after in a perfect country that never faced tyranny or oppression or any bad things ever again. The end. Actually, wrong. Just because everyone here loves America and freedom does not mean that passing the Convention of States resolution was easy. Instead, what we find is a tale of dedication, tenacity, and patriotism, altogether fitting for this resilient state. This is the story of Canada. Wait. Convention of States was founded in 2013, quickly swelling into one of the most important Obama-era political movements.
My name was Barack Obama, you know, the president.
COS represented more than just the backlash to one president's policies, but to more than a century of virtually unchecked government expansion.
Problem right now is we have a centralized government, concentration of power, unmoored from the Constitution. That's why they get into these fights. You know what they're fighting over, Jake? They're fighting over power. Who's going to be imposing their will on the American people? That's not the way it's supposed to work. The system is broken. The constitutional construct is broken.
In that time, even the presidents who talked about reigning in the federal government ultimately failed to do so. And that raises an important question. What exactly does the expansion of government mean? Or in other words, what is the federal government overreaching into? Well, in many cases, it's into the authority of the states. State governments are closer to home and tend to be more representative of the people who live within them. For this reason, Texas was a prime candidate for passing the COS resolution. The Lone Star State, like so many others, was tired of answering to faceless, unaccountable career bureaucrats and their endless stream of federal mandates. This was so important to Texas that Governor Greg Abbott, in response to pressure from the grassroots, made passing the COS application a top priority.
You know as well as I do that the future of America cannot wait for tomorrow. So I am declaring this an emergency item today. First, Megan, importantly, this is not my plan. This was Madison's plan, Hamilton's plan, Ben Franklin's plan, the founders' plan. They knew and they articulated at the time of the original convention in 1787 that there would be a need for the American people to alter the Constitution as the country grew and evolved. And so they handed to us in Article 5 of the United States Constitution the pathway to do it.
Governor Abbott was a huge advocate for COS and actually helped push for COS in many ways. And while, sure, it was great to have such high-level support for COS, there's just one problem. No governor can call for a convention. Abbott could advocate for Article 5 all he wanted, but at the end of the day, only the Texas state legislature could pass the resolution. So, what did that process look like? I had the opportunity to sit down with Shelby Williams, a grassroots volunteer who was very involved in bringing COS across the finish line.
So we went up to bat the first time in 2015 in the legislature. It was a learning experience. In 2015, it was the first experience that we had trying to move legislation. Now, things really heated up in 2016. We had lined up our House and Senate sponsors for the COS resolution early. So in late 2016, when bill filing had started, we had a gathering at the state capitol, and Senator Brian Birdwell was our Senate sponsor, and House Rep Rick Miller at the time was our House sponsor. The Senate passed it. It passed out of House committee, ultimately, but then the floor vote was delayed. It was not brought to the floor. It kept dragging and dragging. Finally, we had a date for the floor vote. And you don't get a lot of notice when things come up for a vote at the Capitol. You get 72 hours or less. So with very little notice, we put out the call to action amongst all the COS supporters statewide, saying, get to the Capitol this day. We had about 300 of us in the House gallery looking down on the House members. And there was a maneuver to try to delay it to another day. Well, a lot of folks had taken a lot of pain to come on that day to be there for the vote. And our House sponsor, Rick Miller, was working behind the scenes to try to make sure the bill came up that day. He came through and he got the vote to happen on that day. And when it came up for the vote, an extraordinary thing happened. And I believe it's providential.
I move to add the following members as joint and co-sponsors of SJR 2: Paul Workman, Larry Phillips, Lyle Larson, Dan Huberty. Those are joint sponsors. Co-sponsors: Rick Miller, Justin Holland, Travis Clardy, John Kemple, Doc Anderson, Stan Lambert, and For Price. And Jody Lottenberg, and Jonathan Stickland, Briscoe Kane, J.M. Lozano, Chris Paddy, Mark Keogh, Byron Cook, Bill Zedler, Dennis Bohag.
They started coming up one at a time, saying, me too, me too, me too, me too, me too. This was pure grassroots muscle. They wanted to be seen and heard in front of that audience in the House gallery. And a state director at the time, co-state director Paul Hodson, he was unable to actually be there that day, but he was trying to watch the live stream from the House floor. And when he saw that happen, when he saw the Texas Stampede there, of people crowding around trying to get their names added onto it, he didn't even need the vote. He knew we passed.
Jim Murphy, Phil Stevenson, Schaefer, Leach, Button, Wilson, Shaheen, Guerin, Rinaldi, Ed Thompson, Greg Bonin, Burris, Smithy, Click, Cosper, McLean, Landgraf, and obviously the Undertaker, Hunter. Okay. Gary Van Dijk, Burns, Capriglione. Anybody else in the gallery?
Bringing the Lone Star State into the COS fold was an all-hands-on-deck effort involving hundreds, if not thousands, of the nation's most dedicated patriot activists. Passing the COS application was not easy here, and it will not be easy in any other state. But the dedication and commitment of the Texas team reminds us that fighting for an Article 5 convention, fighting to save the states and our families from federal tyranny, is well worth the fight. From the Alamo to passing the COS resolution in 2017, Texans have proved that they are willing to stand up for freedom, and we have proved that we are a nation that cannot be kept down.
No matter how many times you've been at bat trying to pass the COS resolution, no matter how hard the defeat was, no matter how much of your blood, sweat, and tears you poured into it, and ultimately it didn't pass. Look not only to everybody who's come before you, look to everybody who's going to come after you, and who you're going to enable to make a difference in 10, 20, 30, 40, 50 years.